What's up, everybody? Just kicking off the stream here. I haven't done this for a while. Yeah, so Alex looks like he's been using Noticed recently and was finding little edge cases that I had missed. For example, translations and URL helpers inside of the ephemeral notifications. Those ephemeral notifications are interesting because they are not saved to the database. So you pretty much end up with these background jobs that take all the arguments and send them over. And I haven't used them much myself, but they have kind of a second implementation that was missing some stuff. So I was going to look through this, walk through it with you guys, and just kind of talk about it. And I also realized that he added the URL helpers here inside the ephemeral class and the notification class inside. So we have like an event higher level thing, which is like ephemeral, or event, which is the parent, and then each event has a bunch of notifications inside of it. So the metadata goes in the event or the ephemeral object, and then each notification can reference that and grab data from it. So what I want to do is add the URL helpers into the noticed notification class under events, because that does not currently have it. So we'll need to do an include there, and we can also do an include of translation in there. So inside of that block, be able to do that as well. So let me pull up the code here. VS Code. There we go. So let's see if we got everything local. Looking good. So yeah, the main place we're looking at for this stuff is going to be here in the models. So notification methods is where we do this. Here we can shrink this down even more. Maybe I think I got zoomed in a bit. There we go. Yeah, so basically this is what goes on here. So when we inherit from a notifier, like you build your own class. So the way it works is you have your own like comment notifier, and this inherits from noticed event, which is an active record object. When you do this inheritance, it will call the inherited method, and we'll drop you in there. Let's see, I don't have chat up. Let me pull that up real quick. Can't see what you guys are saying. So let's jump in there. Where do I see that? One second. For some reason, OBS is hiding the chat window every time I like view or focus on something else, which is very annoying. Maybe I can pin it or something. I don't know. I haven't used OBS in a while. I can put it inside of the OBS window somehow. I've been thinking on an idea for Notice. What do you think about a previewer like this Rails mailers preview? Yeah, I could see that. But it gets a little tricky of like, what do you do for iOS or, Android notifications or whatever else. But having, they're active record objects, so you should be able to render those out pretty easily in whatever way you want. Of course, everything is a little bit different. So SMS, it'll need to render a special, like, shorter string, like 160 characters or less or whatever for that. So I've thought about that too. I would like it. It's also a little tricky. So I'm curious to hear what you come up with on that. So yeah, let's dig back into defining this class. So when you define a notifier, we automatically generate a notification class inside that class, so we can have the parent and all of its associated notifications. And that's what this line here does. So what we want to do is we want to basically include translations and the URL helpers inside of there. So we can do a couple things. We could basically define this new class and then say class include translation, which should be our notice translation. And then we could translation module, then we could use that class here. That's probably going to be the easiest way of doing it, because otherwise, we're setting this constant dynamically, and we have to look up the constant here. We could probably say notification, and that would work. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was just like, when I originally wrote it, constant and const get made the most sense while I was writing it, but I think we could probably just reference that class when we get to that point. So here's where we want to add compatibility with what Alex had made here, which I think is good. So we have the ability to add like methods up here, and you can have like a message or like an SMS message or something, so that you could like take and use translations and have like whatever key you want here, and then you could render that out when you send it over to Twilio or something. But you might need a longer message for sending an email, or a different message for the notification in the nav bar or something. So it's flexible to do whatever you want, and we're using the translation module to make that possible. But this notification class is kind of defined dynamically, so we have a notification methods block that you can define and add other helpers here. So if you were rendering in the nav bar the notifications themselves, they will have their parent, the event. They can go and ask for this on, but it sometimes is easier just to add those helper methods directly to the notification and not its parent with the other metadata. So we have those two different ways of defining that, and that's all that this does. Is it basically takes this block you define and evaluates it inside of the notification. So what we are wanting to do today is basically set it up like so. So we include the translation and URL helpers there when we do that, because that is automatically, Vim mode's doing crazy stuff. That's automatically done for us. So really this should kind of be like all we need. We can run our tests and see what's going on here. But everything passed. Good. Test is missing assertions. I like to see that. I don't think it's actually missing assertions, because these are using like a mock or whatever, so that that would throw an exception, but it doesn't actually need an assertion. So we may want to put an assertion in some of these to fix that warning there. But that's cool. That works. The other thing, as we just mentioned it, we may not need to use const get. We might be able to use this directly, and we can run our test and see if that passes the same way. I think it will, because it's going to look up the constant when it's at that point. And this will always run after the notification constant has been set right here. So that's good. The next thing we really want to do is basically make sure we can use the translation and the URL helpers inside of our notification. So we're going to want to go to the test folder and write some tests for that. All right. Notification test, I believe, is what we're going to want. And I don't know. It's possible we could just say, like, so we could define a notification with the helper method that returns a URL, but we could also probably... you know what? I'm thinking, too. This is on the base. And we're already inheriting from notice notification. This is, like, way too much stuff that we don't really need to do. Noticed notification.rb. We already have translation in here, so that's redundant, and then we can just put this in here. Oh, we already have it. There we go. I didn't even need to do any of that work. We're already good to go on it. So yeah, no need for any of that stuff, but it would be nice to check that in some tests. Because Alex's PR here is adding that, and I don't think we have any tests for this. Let me edit this and say, basically, let's see, I think that, yep. We're already including those in noticed notification. We cannot do that same inherit from notice notification for ephemeral notifications because they are not database backed, and this is an active record class, as you can see right here, application record. So we can't inherit from that on the ephemeral ones. We can check chat and see what's going on. Working on a fintech app with a big mobile initiative. We decided to go with Notice. Amazing. Glad you're enjoying it. Let me know if you run into any issues. This new version, luckily you're on that one, hopefully, version 2. Instead of version 1, we fixed a ton of stuff. And by doing like single table inheritance, we can like organize stuff way easier. And you can also go through and change, you know, with active record, set it to split out tables or something too if you want. But yeah. Do you work another job as well, or is it Go Rails and side projects your main source of income? Yeah, Go Rails and Hatchbox and Jumpstart Pro and a couple of the courses that we sell are my full-time job. Been doing that full-time since like 2016, I think. But back then I was barely making like minimum wage. What font is this? No idea, actually. Settings, color theme, go to settings, text editor, font. Probably Menlo, because Monaco is a little more rounded than this. Yeah, it's got to be Menlo. I think that's just the default of whatever I got here. Yeah. So, all right, we don't need to make any changes for that URL and translation stuff, but we should write some tests to make that better. So the options that we have, like in a Rails engine, you have a dummy application. So we could go into our notifiers and pick one of these. For example, comment notifier. We could go in here and add a notification helper in there, but I think we can also just access those helpers ourselves. So let's maybe try that. Let's run the Rails console, and we can basically make a new comment notifier notification. And honestly, too, we should be able to say like root URL right off of the comment notifier, and then we should be able to do the same thing, notification, new root URL, and that should work as well. So that'll verify that we have the URL helpers available. And so in our tests, that's what we want to do. We want to say like test URL notifier URL helpers. And we can say assert equal the root URL and the comment notifier new root URL. Oops, my Vim mode stuff's messing with me a little bit. And we can do the same thing for the notification. And actually, this should probably go into like the notifier test itself. So let's open that in a new tab here. And we also define some of these notifiers just for testing right in the test suite right there. But having some of these available in the dummy Rails application can be a little bit more realistic. And you can also, play with them in the Rails console for testing. So, okay, we already have this for that. I'm going to also do the same as we do here for the notification test rather. And the reason we do this is just, we could test against the root URL here probably, but it actually may give us a we'll run this test. It may actually give us an error because that root URL helper might not be available inside the active support test case, which is why it's a little bit better if we do the string there. So let's do, what is this file? Test models noticed notification test.rb. There we go. And I think that's going to be missing a do block. Run it one more time. Yeah, method missing root URL. So we'd have to include the URL helpers here, and that wouldn't really be a great way of testing anyway. So I'm going to use that string, and that'll work. Nice. Okay, great. So why don't we actually, I think this is good. Let's merge this because the next thing that we'll want to do is test the ephemeral notification and the notifier for the same things, but we'll need this code in order to do that. So merge that. We'll go into VS Code, git fetch, git pull. And then if we go to the notifier test, we can also do this. I don't know if there's any specific ephemeral ones. There is an ephemeral notifier test. So we'll use this folder for that. And primarily this is for testing to make sure that it works just in general, but it's useful if we also say, let's ephemeral notifier new URL. So then we can have, I don't think we have an ephemeral notification test, but we could do this here same way. And treat them the same. So we'll run the test suite again, but in general, when we're writing these tests, we want them to kind of be specific to the one thing that we're testing. We could try and merge the assertions together and just say like it works for active record ones and ephemeral ones, but when it breaks down, we'll get a description with this string in it, and that'll be more helpful there. So, okay, URL for an instance of ephemeral notifier. That is this test. Includes Rails URLs. Ephemeral. Say that. So that is URL for an instance of ephemeral notifier. So let's go to the ephemeral notifier. And noticed ephemeral is what I want. URL helpers. Ephemeral notifier inherits from that. So it should have access to that. That should be fine. Not sure what's going on there. Let's see, my screen's a little off here on OBS. I'm gonna work on my streaming stuff, do this more often. Okay. So, URL, yeah, of course. That should be root URL. I don't know if I accidentally botched that when I copied that over. That should be the fix. All right. Tests are passing. That's good. We've got our ephemeral notifier test and our notification test for those as well. That is good. Another thing we probably can do is, so for the ephemeral notifier, we can test ephemeral notifier supports translations, config enyml should have, so the scoped i18n example or the i18n example message. So i18n, wonder if we have that defined under like the notifier test as a or a actual notifier file. Yeah, where is that then? Or do we have tests for that at all? Translation test, here we go, 18n example. Okay, so we could actually, if we're gonna put, so the way I sometimes break this up is, you know, we'll put all the tests for the models in like the notifier test for that notifier model. But honestly, in some examples where we're doing this, specifically a test file just for translations, I'd rather put these tests all in the one location for that. So I think I'm going to do that, and we can have the tests for the notifiers, translations, which we already do, but we also want to have the noticed method or notification methods message stuff in there as well. So let's do that. We're also testing the relative translation. So with the period at the beginning, it's going to look up that inside of the en YAML locales file under noticed i18n example message. So that's helpful to have as well. So what are we doing here? Blocks can use translations. Notice notifications 1. So that's grabbing a notification actually. And evaluating the block. Some of these could probably be cleaner. Scope translation key message. So it'll probably be helpful to have the locales up here side by side. Custom scope translation. So we're looking for that string there in the scoped version, which is gonna be the scoped 18n example. I guess that's scoped under, it's always going to have noticed in the beginning, or the IC scope right there is defined. Gotcha. This is actually pretty cool because just to show you all, translation.rb, that module is using the Rails HTML safe translation functionality that powers your Rails controllers and views. And then we had to like re-implement that from scratch if your Rails version didn't support that. That is currently a private API, but I think Raphael gave me the thumbs up to make that a public module that could be used other places, because it doesn't actually use anything specific to controllers or views or helpers or whatever. So it's not, it's just active support HTML safe translation. It's not dependent on any Rails things. So this should be something that can be made public so that we can use that. And maybe I'll get that squeezed into Rails 8 or something. Didn't get that into Rails 7 too. Okie dokie. You know, I'm looking at this and like we're defining these messages and these helpers and stuff, and I think we could do just a test that's ephemeral translations. And honestly, I think we could say like ephemeral notifier new T and just have like a lookup for something like hello, and we should be able to assert equal hello, or what is that? Hello world. So that should work, I think. And then honestly, that might be a better way of writing some of these tests. Just a little simpler. We don't have to define a new class. We don't have to add more helper methods and examples and whatnot. We can just use that method call directly, and then, because then we could also say ephemeral notifier notification new for another test, ephemeral notification translations, and that one should also work. And then we can go and fix these missing assertions. I do really like that Rails has added that now. That's pretty awesome. Those look like they work, so that's good. So we could look at git status and add tests for the URL helpers, and maybe we'll just do it all in one commit. Test ephemeral URL helpers and translations work. So I'll push that up. Probably should have run well, we're not on Rubocop yet. Bundle exec standard RB. I think I'm probably going to move everything over to the new Rubocop omakase rules. I love standard, but also just having the built-in stuff. One less dependency, one more thing that's consistent across everything. Not a bad thing. All right, so I think we're good. Standard had no issues. Good. All right. Well, cool. We got tests for those couple things that Alex found that was missing. So that's good. And then we wanted to go up to the test suite and fix these missing assertions. Twilio messaging test. .rb. These tests are stubbing the HTTP requests, and so they're calling deliver on the delivery method. And so like Twilio messaging.rb, it's going to basically make a post request, and it will raise an error if there was a non-200 response. And so that's really all there is to it. Yeah, so we could just say assert nothing raised to give this an assertion. So that is probably the easiest way to do it. So we can say bin rails test, just count how many of these we've got. We probably got, this file. See, this is already asserting that it raises there when something went wrong. Same with here. So we probably just need a handful of places where when the stub fails, we just want to assert nothing raised or whatever. So we'll go through each one of these and handle that. Delivery methods, FCM test.rb. Each device token notifies each device token. Same thing. Just don't want to raise any errors when it fails. These other ones will probably do the same thing, or they're like adding the invalid token test for that. Same thing for fcm.rb. It's going to send the device token. It's going to make a post request, and if something goes wrong, it will raise an exception. So that should be all we need for that. Let me save that one. What do we got? Microsoft Teams.rb, or rather Microsoft Teams test. So yes, assert nothing raised, assert raises. That's pretty easy. Okay, webhook test, bulk delivery, and probably the regular, but bulk delivery was what was shown here first, so we'll do that here. Webhook test 8.18. That said assert raises though. Wait, wrong file. Slack test. I'll do a handful of these and we'll come back and see what we're missing. Luckily the test suite on here is ultra fast. Notifier test.rb. Line 73. Yeah, you guys can't see my whole screen here. How do I? Or maybe you can, but I'm showing some bars here. I better check the stream. Of course, YouTube doesn't want you to watch your stream on your stream. Yeah, you guys can't see the whole bottom of my screen here. Okay. How do I do this? Screen capture. There we go. But where's the properties, the settings? Show cursor, crop none, built-in display. Oh, sorry about that. I thought everything was fine. But also, what is going on here? The video doesn't match the size. Alrighty. That's better at least. So we'll get that figured out. Maybe it's, I don't know, aspect ratio is off or something. Looks pretty alright. Alrighty. Back to work. So bulk delivery method test. Webhook test line 20. And line 38. Okay. We'll run these again, see what we've cleared out here. 4 left. Excellent. So regular delivery methods, webhook test, test RB. Simple as drop this in, drop that in, drop that in, and this one. That should be all 4 of the last ones. Then we are good to go. Awesome. So I'm going to add all of these. I'm just going to go poke through each one, make sure that it looks right. I didn't make any mistakes. Looks good. Add assertions, add missing assertions to tests, something like that. Well, let's actually bundle exact standard RB first. And there we go. Cool. I believe then the last thing that we will need to do, add some changelog notes. We'll push that up and then we can version bump this and get this new version released with those fixes. So changelog is going to have version 2.4.3. What did I do there? Typo. Okay, so we add translation and URL helpers to ephemeral. Is that right? I'm already drawing a blank this morning. Yeah, to ephemeral and notification. And that was number 485. Holy cow, that's a lot of issues and pull requests already. I don't know if I can change the quality while I'm streaming. Morning, Mike. What's up? I also bumped my display resolution way down, so it may not even be 1080p. Yeah, it's not 2048 by 1152. Or maybe it's over. Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to play with OBS. I haven't used it for a couple years probably. Okay, so this one, translation support in ephemeral notifications, which is correct, but this should be notifiers and notifications. So that is what we want. Then, so the way you can release a new Ruby gem is pretty much this. You will bump the version here, or actually, I'm going to show you guys the new GitHub action that I wrote. So if we bump the version in the changelog, update changelog, push that up to GitHub. Let's double check our actions have passed. They did, succeeded. I have a GitHub action called publish gem, which runs when you click this run workflow, and you can specify the version here. It will go and make a commit to bump the version number and then publish that for you, which is pretty cool. So this is the YAML file for it. You can take a look at it. It's open source, in the gem. So it requires you to type in a version. It's got to be string required, and then it goes through and runs this where it will use the Ubuntu latest image. It has a GitHub token for read or write access. I'm assuming also read is implied there. But then it will basically update the version number. It'll run Ruby and install Ruby and everything. Then update the version number, run bundle and appraisal to update the versions in all the gem files. Then it sets up a GitHub user for GitHub Actions so it can make a commit using that token up here, and then makes a commit and pushes it and releases that new version of the gem as the very last step after that commit has been done. So this can be all automated. And ideally, the other thing that we would do is this would run the CI. Oh, it does actually. I forgot about this. So first, it runs the CI job from that folder at the root, starting at the root of the repository. So it runs the CI like normal. And then this says it needs the test to be finished first. So it'll do that, trigger the test again, then run the release, which is pretty cool. We can also just in our terminal run rake release here. But this requires us to be logged in and everything. We also have to do our 2FA code and all that good stuff. So if we want to run the workflow here, we will see that it is going to start publish gem. It is running the CI first before push to Ruby gems. So we'll see it run all the tests. And we'll give it a minute, and then we will be good to go. It's a brand new version. This kind of stuff helps make it easy. Like if you've merged a pull request from somebody and want to create a new release right away, you just do it and you're done. You don't have to get on your computer at all even. You know, you could do this on the web, on your phone or iPad or something, which is handy as a maintainer because you want to, you know, I think a lot of people wait, and I tend to do that sometimes, wait to make a release until there's a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't hurt to have lots of smaller releases and get those fixes out there quicker. So I like doing that. That way, like Alex's fix, you can use right away. You don't have to use it from main on GitHub or whatever. And these tests run pretty fast. So if we look at this, succeeded in 23 seconds, 26 seconds, 18 seconds, 26 seconds, 47 seconds. They're all pretty quick. Most of this is going to be time, you know, booting up the container for the database and then booting up Rails and Ruby or whatever to run the tests. And the tests themselves run super fast. Yeah, half a second. So everything out of there is 33 seconds of booting up Docker images and whatnot, and then bam, just super fast test suite, which is great. So now we're moving on to the push. If we go back to summary, you'll see all those are completed, which now means push can begin, which is going to then run bundle to basically update the gem files with the new version of this gem, commit that to GitHub. Locally, I'll need to git fetch in order to pull this new thing, but we're also using appraisal here, which is the Thoughtbot gem that allows us to do these tests against, you name it, 1, 2, 3 versions of Ruby. I think I dropped 3.0 recently because like Rails doesn't support it anymore or whatever. But it's getting older, and really there's not many differences between 3.1, 2, and 3.3. So that's great because it allows us to ensure, you know, our JSON columns that we use are working across those different databases and yada yada. Different Ruby versions, Rails versions, that whole mixture of things. We can test every permutation of that and then ensure it all passes. So, all right, now we're moving on to the release gem, Ruby Gems action, which is going to do the push up to rubygems.org, and it's not going to require me to be logged in. because they're going to actually go from GitHub Actions to Ruby Gems and get a short-lived token in order to make this push and release without having to do two-factor auth, my username or password or any of that stuff. It's all secure, going directly from GitHub to Ruby Gems, which is sweet. I like it. There we go. Cleaning up. We are done. So, last step, which is a little bit manual, is going over here to releases, drafting a new release. We choose the tag, generate release notes, and this will like grab all the pull requests and stuff since then, or whatever that got merged in, and publish that. So you don't see my test edition commits or any of that stuff in here, but that's okay. So there we go. Commit is done by this GitHub Actions user. It's not clickable because it's not a real GitHub user or anything, but it shows up there and was created automatically by our GitHub action. So then git fetch, git pull, and we are off to the races here. There we go. Yeah, cool. That was pretty much all I wanted to do today. I was like, it's been a while since I looked at the translations and URL helpers and things and what was included in Rails here. So it's good to have all this stuff done inconsistent now between the two types of notifications. Yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, we do work in one place. We really have to copy it to the other place. And it's easy to forget that. So it's also possible that we want to extract this into a module or something that we could name, and then we could include that in both places so they both end up with the same features. Because right now we have to include it in two different places. But that's a refactoring we could do later. One of you guys could make a pull request for that if you wanted to. It's just a matter of like, what is this called? What do we name those modules, which can be a little tricky. Maybe it's like noticed event base or something. I don't know exactly. But it's also only a couple lines of code that we need in each place at the moment. So it's not super necessary to do that. And it's just easy for us to make a mistake and update one and not the other, which is mainly the concern that I have with it. And clearly we've missed some things already. So it does make sense to do that. And then both ephemeral and event can have a concern they could include there because it's going to be these same three things in both places. So yeah, that is it. I think I'm going to call it here. I hope you guys had fun, but if you want me to do more of these, I'd love to. This is fun, just kind of my regular work day anyways, and it's nice to be able to share that with y'all and do this together instead of just quiet at home by myself, you know? So let's dig in. Yeah, have a good Friday, and talk to you guys maybe next week. Do another one of these.